The 25th Hour Radio Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today to the 25th Hour Radio Show here on Monster Radio AM 1150. I am your host, Bob Fairless, and on the phone with me today is singer, songwriter, and actress Tiffany. Tiffany, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show.
Oh, thank you. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. Let's jump right into this and start from the very beginning. What initially got you interested in singing enough to want you to be a singer, a performer yourself, and how did you end up breaking into the industry?
Well, I started just singing around the house when I was 2 years old. I loved music, loved listening to music, and I would learn songs. It just came very easy to me. So I spent a lot of time running around driving my parents crazy, literally. I was always singing in the supermarket, at the car, and they couldn't shut me up. I mean, they definitely tried because I was a little annoying. But, it wasn't until I was like 9 that some family friends actually heard me sing. They were musicians, and they were playing the piano, and their kids sang, and they were my friends. And so I started singing with them, and they said, to my parents, she really does have a voice. I mean, you should maybe pursue this. And so my dad, it's one thing to sing around the house and sing around your family, and it's another to maybe sing in front of strangers. So he started texting me and taking me different places, and having, at that time I was listening to country music, and so he'd have the bands call me up and sing, and I think he thought I was going to chicken out, and I never did. I got up there in front of a couple hundred people, I think my first time, and I was right at home. I was all good with it. So, my parents had no clue of how to pursue the music industry or what to do. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, so he just started talking to people and asking them, okay, well, what do you, how would you go about this? So I spent probably 9, 10, and 11 just singing with country bands and going from gig to gig. And, my mom would make my costumes, and we'd get headshots and meet people. And eventually I started to go into Los Angeles. And, somebody said, you should get a manager. And so we talked to a few managers. And it was really very grassroots and word of mouth. And it wasn't really until Floyd Axton, I don't know if a lot of people know a song called Joy to the World. Mm-hmm. He actually kind of took me under his wing, sent me to Nashville to meet his mom, Mae Axton. And she was very accomplished there, had managed a lot of different people, found a lot of up-and-coming talent like Faith Hill, and even worked with Reba. So she brought me down there at 12, and I did a couple TV shows. And again, I was trying to get a record deal at 12 years old in Nashville, and it just didn't work out at that time. I had to wait until I was 14 and get
the ripe old age
of
14.
Yeah, but I mean, I just, my family just, they knew I wanted to do it, and we just didn't give up, and it was just in the cards to make it happen. And I'm so thankful, because I really did drive everybody nuts with my singing. That I always laugh. At least it worked out. It wasn't for nothing.
Yeah, now, before there was a show called America's Got Talent that everybody watches right now, there was a show called Star Search, right? And you were on Star Search. How old were you when you were on Star Search?
I was 11 when I did Star Search, I believe. And I didn't win Star Search. I was heartbroken. But, my competitor was, I think, a little bit more groomed and a little bit more poised, and definitely knew how to work a crowd. For me, I was this big voice, and I really wasn't comfortable on stage yet that you had to engage with people. So, I would just stand there with a microphone, and I'd sound like a 30-year-old woman, and people were, oh, wow, but I didn't really know how to kind of do the whole stage presence kind of thing. And so looking back at my performance, even though I was bummed that I didn't win. I cried. But when I left the stage, I at sound check and all these different things before you tape, I watched her perform, and I thought, well, she's really, really good. And so it was a lesson learned. Now, definitely 30 years on, you can't shut me up on stage. I talk and sing and interact with people probably more than they expect.
Now, what I remember, at least in the very beginning, because me and you are about the same age, was the shopping mall tours, which really set your career in motion, right? I mean, when you were initially told you would be doing the shopping mall tours, were you all for it? I mean, were you hesitant at all ever?
Oh, no, I thought the malls were a great idea. That's really where I did hang out, I mean, as a kid. So, it made sense. That's where my age group was. I mean, when I first got the record deal, we took the songs, I think We're Alone Now, and a few other songs that didn't make it on the record, and I would do 3 songs at a nightclub in New Jersey and New York area at 14, just testing it out before the record came out. And the songs did great, but I was 14. I couldn't hang out. I couldn't, meet anybody. I had, no reference, and people didn't really want to hang out with a 14-year-old. I wasn't, legal even to be in there. So that was a problem, and the album was going to just kind of get shelved. I mean, they had signed me, and then they were rethinking, well, maybe this wasn't a good idea, and it was the mall tours that saved everything.
Now, what was it like for you to be a teen idol? I mean, did you ever struggle to adapt to what you were expected to do day in and day out at that age?
I think I struggled sometimes with being, I don't want to say perfect, but like this role model for kids when I was a kid myself. I mean, I was on the road, and I mean, everything was very innocent for me. There wasn't, drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but it was, do you feel like doing your homework all the time? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But you couldn't say that, it was just different. I mean, I was around adults all the time, and, I kind of wanted to hang out, and I was tired a lot of times as well too. So it was hard to have, my poor teacher, who actually was my drummer. He was a certified teacher and out on the road with me. But he definitely had to get my attention, because you get up in the morning and you do, live radio, and then you go to sound check, and then you get ready for a show. And when you get back on the bus, you're not thinking about, a history lesson. You're tired.
Yeah. So, as time passes, styles of music change, styles of clothes change, ways of thinking change. You come from an era when like the rock and rap music started to become more popular in the United States, and you started to see a shift in the styles of music that young people were listening to. Being you still were a young woman at that time, did that shift influence you at all when cutting an album, around that time period?
I think so. I mean, I think, I had changed a little bit between the first and second album. The first album took a year to record. The second album, we didn't have that time, because now you have a demand, and I think it really mattered. I wasn't happy with a lot of the songs actually on the second record. I just kind of felt that they were maybe weaker. And I thought that for me as a singer, I always thought I would be kind of a rock country kind of person. That's what I was listening to. I love Stevie Nicks. So I always saw myself, fronting this band, rather it be, I listened to like Roseanne Cash and Lacey J. Dalton and country music. So a little bit more edgy. And then, of course, I was influenced by Fleetwood Mac and Heart. So if you could mix those two worlds together, that's where even at 12 years old, I was hoping to be. And then all of a sudden I was doing dance music. I loved the ballads because I thought they showed I could sing. But the dance music, I listened to dance music, but I didn't really want to be a dance artist. So once we tapped into that world, and it seemed like, you have to keep going. And I think there was a lot of urban influence coming out, which, I loved a lot of those artists, but I was just always afraid that was something that wasn't really in my heart. And long term, was I going to be happy? Which sounds, ridiculous. A lot of people are like, take the money.
Yeah.
But, I was like, well, this is my dream. I want to sing songs that I love. And I think the second record, we put some songs up there that were more up tempo that I thought were pretty cheesy, to be honest with you. So, I mean, it was a lesson learned for me that I would perform them, but it was very half-heartedly. And I think that, right, wrong, or, whatever it is, I really make a point now to record stuff that I love. And I've made exceptions sometimes because you get with a label and, you don't know everything as an artist, and you have a trust factor, and, and you hope for the best. But I just still, at this point, I love where I'm at in my career now, writing a lot of my music and co-producing a lot of stuff, because it really is my heart, and I will sing it in front of, 20,000 people or two. But you're going to get what real authentic Tiffany is.
Now, when did you start seeing overseas success with your music? Was that from the very beginning, or was that a few years down the road for you?
I think that was, within the first year. Really, after the mall tour happened, we started putting a tour together, and we started, having releases out in Asia mostly. And then I think Europe came after that. So, by the first year and a half, I was getting on planes and going to other parts of the world, and I was thrilled. I mean, it was bigger than I had ever thought it was going to be. 9 years old, twirling around my room, singing, with the hairbrush, the whole 9 yards in the mirror, and hoping that I could sing one day, turned into, being a major pop star and traveling the world. So, for me, that was such an impression of different people and different cultures and different food and languages. And I love every minute of it. I'm very grateful that I can experience that. I've made lifelong friends and dance all around the world. And I definitely think that just me as a person, they've really, affected me and how I think about my life, and definitely food. I'm a foodie, so, I've taken home some of the best recipes.
Hey, I got a question on here. Speaking of going overseas and performing, was it strange performing for people who didn't speak English?
It was. I mean, back then I didn't really talk a lot anyway, so I just announced the song title most of the time. Interviews was, I'd have an interpreter, and that was a little interesting to get the pacing a little bit. But I think that there's something about people, especially maybe with music, that you can feel people, you can feel that acceptance, or you can feel when, okay, this song isn't going well, or you can feel, when you're talking to somebody, even if you don't really speak a language, you can feel that connection. And just certain things like, saying thank you and kind of nodding your head or something, people understand. So I always have that connection with my fans no matter what, and I'm very grateful.
So let's talk a second about your career outside of music. I mean, you've been able to land some film roles, participate in some reality shows. Let's start with the film. Was acting something you always wanted to do, or was that just an opportunity that presented itself to you at the moment and you just ran with it?
Acting was something that I actually was doing before I got my record deal. So once my parents, kind of went to LA and got advice from people, and I had my first manager, it was, well, now she needs to do everything. She needs to dance and sing and act. And so I went from classes to classes to classes. And I, auditioned for commercials and on and on and on. So I was already actually a dancer. I started dancing when I was 2 years old. So maybe that's why the stage wasn't, a strange place for me. And I was dancing professionally in a dance group until I was probably 12. And then it was, my music was kind of taking over, and it was expensive for my parents to continue to do all the different lessons. So it drive me all the way to LA. We lived about an hour and a half outside of LA. So, again, my parents are just working class, and they had to pick one or the other. And, they sat me down and they said, listen, what do you really want to pursue? And I was like, well, singing. I think that was, that's the best for me. So, it all was an experience. I think, now it's like, it's great to have all these different facets in life, and to be able to reconnect with it now and do some more acting is awesome. I'd love to continue to do them. I love sci-fi. I'm a total sci-fi dork.
I was getting ready to ask you that. So yeah,
doing more of that. Yeah. And, I like horror films. I like zombies and mystery and stuff like that. And I've been given some scripts here and there, but right now it seems like the last couple of years I'm just again pursuing music so heavily and touring. I've been touring extensively this year, and next year I'm already completely booked. So, that is my first love. So, I'm very grateful again, and it takes me amazing places. If I can do something on my downtime, like make a guest appearance or shoot something where it's a 2-week kind of thing, I'd be all about it.
Now, you were speaking of being a foodie. Just a couple of years ago, you was on the Rachel versus Guy Celebrity Cook-Off. You got third place. I mean, what kind of cooking are we talking about here outside of the show that you pride yourself on?
Oh, I love my Mediterranean food, which I didn't do too many on the show, and I love Italian food. So, when Guy put me in, I had never made an arancini before, so that's quite complicated, but I love it. Now I know what it is. I cook all kinds of food, from Indian food to Thai food. Again, Mediterranean. I'm part Lebanese, so that just comes natural. Being from LA, having great friends, and I was married to a Mexican guy for, almost 10 years. So, I cook some mean Mexican food. People are shocked. I make a great mole and great salsas, and, so, but I just love it. That's my biggest thing, is getting dinner parties together when I'm home, and randomly just getting 20, 30 people, and then just going for it, making a bunch of different things. And I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. I'll be having that at my house as usual. And the new show, actually, A Million Miles, that I'm out on the road with, is an acoustic show. And that was kind of set on a lot of the basis of the show is kind of set on a lot of my barbecues, where I have people come over, feed them tons of food, and then start bringing out all these different pieces of percussion. And usually in Nashville, everybody has a guitar or can sing. And then my friends who can't, and are really shy, I'm like, oh, no, you can do a shaker. And that's kind of what we've been doing on the road with A Million Miles, is I hand out tambourines to the audience, shakers, and everybody sits down. It's a very intimate setting. It works between 200 to 500 seaters. 200 is even better because it's more intimate. And, we just play even requests. We do, obviously, the hits, and then we do the new album. So it really is an intimate show, and I can honestly say no show has been the same, which I love and my band loves. So you're just really getting that, spontaneous interaction and 30 years of music. My band has had to learn all of my music, and so that we can take requests on the fly, which is a lot of fun. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Now, are there any songs on this album you might direct someone to buy on iTunes to get a feel of what the album is actually about and what it sounds like?
Some of my favorite ballads, A Million Miles, the title track, was written about my cousin who passed away from addiction. So, that's a song that is near and dear to my heart. It's a song about, having somebody gone, but you hope that they're still seeing everything that goes on in your life, and you wish that they were here. And, they're a million miles away, So I'm very partial to that one. I think Right Here, which is the single, it's just a good up-tempo song. I actually wrote it a little bit about my fans, but they've been there the whole time for me. But it is more of a song that you can, by that special person, about the unconditional love that they give you and the support that they give you. So that's a good one. And I love songs like Waking Up for the First Time, which is actually the new single now. And we're actually going to start going over to Europe and playing that. So I'm really excited about that as well. So those are like my three choices that will give you some insight on the album. But if you go to tiffanytunes.com, actually we're streaming the album there, so you can listen to it there. And then hopefully you'll just go and get the whole album.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, with any release of a new album, there's a promotional tour associated with it. Any upcoming dates my listeners might be interested in?
Yes, you can actually go to tiffanytunes.com on that one as well. And there's tons of dates. I mean, I'm always out on the road doing either the acoustic show or the live band show. I also do, old school 80s retro stuff. And I do pop into some clubs here and there every once in a while, which I love to do. It's just a good night out, and I reconnect with a lot of my original fan base, and we have a blast. So there's a lot of different hats that I'm wearing. The Million Miles tour is going to kick off again in January, and that'll take us until probably June. And we're going literally a million miles here and there all over. So I'm very excited about it.
Now, are you a big social media fan? Do you have your favorites you're more likely to be hanging out on more than others?
Probably Twitter for me is more than, my Facebook. I am, and they're linked a little bit here and there, but I do like to have different things. So sometimes I don't link certain things that I put on Twitter to Facebook just to keep people interested. But there's something about Facebook that I love all the pictures. I love when my fans post old school stuff. You just have like this whole, collage of like fun stuff on there. So, but I mean, I'm on Twitter quite often.
So before we wrap this up, I always give my guests the opportunity to say something to their fans out there who have supported them throughout the years. So what do you have to say to your people, the ones who have stuck with you through thick and thin?
Well, that I love you and thank you so much. And that it's been great to be able to grow up together and now do life together. I mean, that connection again with my fans and hear their stories and hear how my music influences them or has, helped in times of need, and sometimes just a good party. I love it. When I get to hear all the stories behind I Think We're Alone Now, which has some been, a little too much information, I have to say.
I bet, but I bet it's great to hear it still. Now, I just want to direct everyone to Tiffany's website, tiffanytunes.com, to get up-to-date information on Tiffany. Tiffany, I want to thank you once again for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.